A little-known studio took a chance on a small-budget film that was about to change the landscape of the horror genre and give the audience nightmares. In 1984, director Wes Craven introduced A Nightmare on Elm Street. We'll take a closer look back at this instant classic on the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's November 1984. By this time, there had already been 4 entries in the Friday the 13th franchise and 3 Halloween movies. The horror genre needed something new. The movie starts off with a cool opening of someone making a glove with knives for fingers. We were already hooked at this point. Who knew crazed killers were so handy with tools? This intro leads right into Tina's nightmare where she's being chased through a boiler room. The dream scared the bejesus out of her, so she talks a few of her friends into spending the night at her house while her mother is off somewhere else. Tina, her boyfriend Rod, Nancy, and Glenn soon figure out they've all been having the same dream about the same ugly dude in the ugly sweater with knives for fingers. Tina and Rod have a little sexy time before falling asleep. And then in one of the coolest moments of the movie, Nancy gets a visitor herself while she sleeps. It's a short scene, but it definitely got the audience's attention. Tina hears something out in the backyard and goes to investigate. She hears someone call her name, so she walks out into the alley of all places. You know, because that's the smart thing to do. This is the first time we see Freddy in all his glory, and this was probably my favorite scene of the whole movie. Him stretching his arms all the way across the alley was wicked. She stops long enough for Freddy to show her a magic trick with his fingers. He then attacks her and they fall to the ground. And the next thing you see is that they're no longer in the backyard. They're now in her bed, still fighting. All that commotion wakes Rod up. He jumps out of bed and yanks the covers off to reveal Tina thrashing around on the bed screaming. To Rod, it's just Tina there, but to Tina, she's fighting for her life against Freddy. Her shirt rips open and you see 4 giant claw marks go down the middle of her chest. Turns out that Tina's quite the bleeder too. When she starts floating in the air, Rod tries to help her, but Freddy whacks him with Tina's body, so now all he can do is cower in the corner and scream her name. She probably has the scariest death scene in the movie. Her moving up the wall as she's being attacked in her dream was freaky. Then her bloody body dropping down onto the bed in a giant splatter was icing on the cake. Glenn and Nancy rush in and find Tina filleted like a fish. Rod's nowhere to be seen because his chicken ass went out the window. Because Rod was the only one in the room with her, the police instantly think he did it, and it's not long before he ends up in jail. The next day, Nancy falls asleep in class and is visited by dead Tina in a body bag. She steps into the hall and follows the blood trail where she sees Tina being dragged around the corner. She runs after Tina and runs smack into some weird girl demanding to know where her hall pass is. The girl has a bloody nose and is wearing a sweater very similar to Freddy's. When Nancy ignores her and runs past her, the girl calls out to her in Freddy's voice and is also now sporting his signature glove. She continues to follow the blood trail down into a dark boiler room. She ends up cornered by Freddy and tries to convince herself that it's all just a dream. Pressing her arm up against a hot pipe seems to do the trick though, as the burning pain wakes her up screaming. And when I say she woke up screaming, I mean she lost her shit. Of course, this freaks out the rest of the class. Then she notices a burn mark on her arm. So at this point, it's pretty obvious. If you die or get hurt in your dream, you suffer the same fate in real life. That night, Nancy goes to visit Rod in jail and they have a nice little chat. He tells her what happened in the room with Tina and about his dream where a guy had knives for fingers. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Nancy? Later that night, Nancy is enjoying a nice soak in the tub. Wes Craven does a great job of building up suspense here as we see Freddy's gloved hand slowly rise up between her legs. The hand quickly disappears when Nancy's mom yells through the door to check on her. When things quiet down, Nancy decides it's time for Calgon to take her away. Her relaxation time is over when she falls asleep in the tub and is yanked underwater. Only she's not in her tub anymore. She's in a giant underwater cavern underneath her tub. Nancy fights her way back up and yells for her mom. And who knew her mom knew how to pick a lock? Her mom gets in and Nancy plays it off by saying that she just slipped getting out of the tub. Her little slip in the tub was enough to drive her to start taking some fast-acting stay-awake pills. And Nancy can't stay awake forever, so she comes up with a plan. She has Glenn come over and watch over her to make sure he wakes her if he sees her struggling in her sleep. It sounds like a solid plan. Nancy is back in Dream World and walks from her house to the police station. Once there, she's able to peek through a window to see inside Rod's cell. and as she watches, Freddy walks right through the cell bars, so Nancy starts yelling for Glen to wake her up. Well, guess what? The plan only works if Glen doesn't fall asleep as well. Dumbass. She keeps yelling his name, but no rescue at this time. And now Freddy knows she's there, and he goes after her. She runs back to her house and finds running up the stairs is hard in Dreamland. Each step is like quicksand. She finally makes it up to her bedroom as Freddy breaks through her front door. Once inside her room, there's Glen, sleeping like a baby. Freddy attacks her and we have another bout of wrestling in the sheets. Thankfully though, Nancy had a backup plan and she's saved when her alarm clock goes off and wakes her up. Thanks for all your help, Glen. Nancy and Glen then rush to the police station to check on Rod. Her dad is the sheriff and he doesn't want Nancy talking to him. While they're arguing, we see Rod's bed sheet mysteriously move up around his neck until it makes a loop and hangs him. By the time they go back and check on him, it's too late. So yeah, he's dead. After Rod's funeral, Nancy tells her dad that the killer is still out there. When he asks her who the real killer is, she says she doesn't know, but he's burned up, wears a brown hat, and has knives for fingers. The dad's face is priceless and he glances at the mom. You know the parents know something. Her mom takes her to a dream clinic, which pretty much forces her to sleep. She's like, whatever, fine, I'll go to sleep. While she sleeps, the doctor tells her mom that a nightmare would register in the 5 or 6 range on the sensor. When Nancy starts thrashing around, you see that number jump up to 30 before they rush in and wake her up. So she gets a new high score. Nancy did not come out of this dream the same way she went in. She has odd streaks of gray hair now and some serious cuts on her arm. Then to top it off, she pulls out an old brown hat from under the covers. She says she brought it out of her dream. Back home, Nancy gets into it with her mom about her nightmares and her mom's drinking. She storms out, and when she returns later that night, she finds all the windows on their house are now covered with bars, and the trellis outside her room has been torn down. So no more late night visits from Glen. When she goes inside, we finally get a little backstory when Nancy's alcoholic mom explains that Freddy was a child killer who murdered at least 20 kids in the neighborhood. Due to a clerical error, Freddy was let go, so the victim's parents tracked his ass down and burned him alive. Nancy's mom even kept a little souvenir from the Freddy roast. She reaches into her furnace and pulls out his real glove to show Nancy. So basically, Freddy is pissed at the parents and decides to punish them by killing their kids with his new afterlife power, or whatever you want to call it. Nancy calls Glen with her new plan and gives him 2 instructions. Number 1, meet her on her porch at midnight. And number 2, whatever you do, don't fall asleep. Should be pretty simple, but we're talking about Glen here. He's proven to be not so good at the following of directions. It's midnight and Nancy is ready to sneak out, but she hasn't heard from Glen. She tries to call him, but his parents answer and they don't like her calling late. A few minutes later, her phone rings, but when she answers it, all she hears is Freddy's knives scraping metal. She gets mad and rips the phone wire out of the wall. When she goes to leave the room, her phone rings again. She's dumbfounded on how that's possible. Duh, it's because we now know that you're in Dreamland. It keeps ringing, so she answers it, and big surprise, it's Freddy calling with a great line.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
Then the phone suddenly has Freddy's mouth on the end with his tongue sticking out. Nancy and the audience grossed out at the same time. We jump over to check on Glen, and he's laying in bed asleep with his TV in his lap and headphones on. Then Freddy's arms come up out of the bed and drag him down. He screams as he tries to hold on, but he's sucked all the way into the bed. There's now a giant hole in the middle of Glen's bed, and blood comes shooting out of it like someone just struck oil. The blood just keeps shooting up and splattering against the ceiling. And this was a really cool scene because the blood was defying gravity, and you had no idea how they pulled it off. When the police and ambulances arrive, a cop tells the paramedic that he doesn't need a stretcher. He's going to need a mop. Of course, her dad is on the scene at Glen's house, so Nancy calls him up. She wants to try her original plan with her dad's help. With Glen gone, Nancy is the final girl and devises a plan to bring Freddy into the real world where she's hoping he can be killed. It's time for some Home Alone action as she rigs up her house with various booby traps to hopefully slow Freddy down a bit. Before Nancy heads to bed, she goes to check on her mom who's laying in bed drinking again. Nancy sets her watch timer and then goes to bed herself. She falls asleep pretty quickly and immediately makes her way down to the basement to fetch Freddy's glove. But guess what? It's already gone. As luck would have it, there's a door in her basement that leads right to Freddy's boiler room. She uses herself as bait to try and get close enough to Freddy to grab him, and she finally gets her wish and Freddy's in hot pursuit. She dives off a walkway and lands in her front yard and still no Freddy. Her watch alerts her that her alarm is going to go off in 10 seconds. Freddy jumps up from the yard, Nancy just dives on him. And as they wrestle, she ends up back in her bed as her alarm goes off. When she wakes up and she looks around, there's no Freddy. She just can't get this plan to work. She thinks she must be crazy after all. But wait, is that Freddy jumping up from behind the bed? Why, sure is. Looks like her plan to bring Freddy into the real world worked after all. She locks Freddy in her room and runs to a window to yell across the street for her dad to come help. He was too busy, so we had Deputy Barney 5 watching the house outside. But he's kind of worthless though. Freddy finally gets the bedroom door open and takes a sledgehammer to the gut. Classic. Then the poor bastard falls over the rail and down the stairs. He's finding out that reality sucks. Nancy breaks more windows and yells outside. The dumbass deputy is still just standing there. He finally decides that maybe he should go get the sheriff. Freddy chasing Nancy through the house almost starts to have a Keystone Cops feel to it as they end up back in the basement. This time though, she hits him with a bottle of gasoline and sets him on fire. Poor Freddy. He's having a serious case of deja vu. He's engulfed in flames, but that doesn't stop him from wanting to kill that pesky Nancy. He chases her up the stairs and she waits until he gets to the top and then knocks him back down. Her dad finally comes over as smoke pours out the windows. He even brings some deputies with him. She leads them to the basement, but she realizes Freddy isn't down there anymore. Nancy and her dad follow the footsteps of fire upstairs where they find Freddy, still on fire, straddling her mom on the bed, choking her out. Oddly, neither the bed or the mom catches on fire. Nancy whacks him with a chair and Sheriff Dad puts out the fire by covering them with a sheet. And this is where it gets a bit lame. The dad pulls back the sheet and no Freddy. He's a slippery bastard. All they see is Mom's burned corpse slowly going down into the bed. And then just like that, she's gone. It's just an empty bed. No fire damage or any proof that anything just happened. She tells her dad he can go and she'll be down in a minute. She just stares at the bed and then turns her back to it. When she does, Freddy comes stretching up through the bed and tears his way out with his claws. She knows he's there and she calls him out on his bullshit. She knows it's all a dream and that he isn't real. She then demands her mom and her friends back and she basically rebukes him. She heads for the door and he lunges at her only to disappear into nothing. Then it gets weird. She opens the bedroom door and walks out onto her front porch. It's the morning and the sun is shining. Then her mother, who appears to be sober, walks out behind her. She's all bright and cheerful and tells Nancy that she doesn't feel like drinking anymore. Glenn, Rod, and Tina pull up in a red convertible. They're there to pick up Nancy for school. She jumps in and the convertible top suddenly closes and it's got red and green stripes. At first they laugh at being scared so easily, but then they're scared for real when the windows roll up on their own, the top latches, and the doors lock. Nancy is banging on the car window and yelling for her mom, who just stands on the porch smiling and waving like a Stepford wife. As the car drives away with its captive passengers, it goes past the creepy jump roping girl singing the Freddy nursery rhyme. Then Freddy's gloved hand smashes through the front door window and yanks the mom back into the house. Now the mom gag happens so fast it makes you jump, but then you see that it's clearly a lame dummy being yanked through the window and the gag becomes funny for the wrong reason. Then fade to black. Roll credits. I loved this movie when it came out. I remember waiting in line with a bunch of friends that Friday night. We were excited to see it opening night and we were not disappointed. We all walked out of that theater more than satisfied. We had seen something truly original and were lucky to get to experience it firsthand. The movie would end up being a huge success and the studio behind it, New Line Cinema, would become known as the house that Freddy built. It did so well at the box office that it was a no-brainer to start making sequels. However, once the sequels started, Freddy became more of a caricature of himself. He would spend as much time cracking one-liners as he did killing teens. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help grow this channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and hope you will come back for the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.